approaching the one who wants the knowledge, who wants the wisdom. So he has to approach the teacher. So how does he approach the teacher? It was mentioned. He bows to the teacher, meaning in mental actually is more important. Of course, physically is more like for traditional purposes and for our own confirmation. So that there's a physical bowing, but the important thing is a mental bowing, meaning seeking that wisdom. And then whatever we can do to serve. And then we ask questions. We can. So here the contemplation. Do I approach teachers for seeking wisdom and spiritual truth? So the highest form of teachers we look for in our life is those who give us the spiritual teachings. We have had many teachers, so there is not like we cannot say there's only one teacher. There's a whole number of teachers. But as we come on the spiritual path, more and more we seek teachers who are giving wisdom, rather than just teachers who teach a mantra or teach even some Sanskrit or even some yoga. All these are that way lesser teachers as we come higher. And the nature of the teacher can also be multifold, like as you come on this path of knowledge, because it's based on tradition. It is not an individual alone. Do I have resistance to approaching them with humility? So this is the question we all have to just check with ourselves. Am I willing to pose my questions in a reverential way? So how do we ask questions? Many times, when we initially we tend to be a little argumentative. We tend to want to prove our points and all that. But once we become a little more stable, we learn to be a little reverential, because we realize that my knowledge is limited, and whatever the nature of teacher, he or she has greater knowledge which I want to absorb. And then am I generous enough to offer something of use to them? Can I make time to be of service to them or to humanity, thus affirming my spiritual life as priority? So this seva usually is considered a highest form of offering and also a highest form of purification. So those who are able to, sometimes, people like to acknowledge their gratitude by sending money and all that, which is also okay. But a higher form of that is seva. So that is why in this mantra, the word seva comes. Pariprashnena sevaya. So through that offering seva, that ability there is a connection developed, a spiritual connection developed. It's not some kind of a mystical thing. It's just that the willingness to give your time indicates that this is a higher priority for you. The time is very important thing in our life, right? So how we use the time. So even a little bit of time a person is willing to offer, that becomes a means for his or her own progress, because there is a shift in the perspective, and all of spiritual path is a shift in perspective ultimately. So here we realize material things I can seek, but the time I'm giving here is that I'm willing to give. So that indicates our priority. Okay, so this chapter we are looking now, chapter 4, Bhagavad Gita. So here, this very point I just want to mention. Now the second line of this mantra says that when you come with that attitude, when you come with that willingness, what happens? Then he says, Upadekshanti te jnanam. They are willing to give you knowledge. So this is a point that sometimes, we are not able to absorb, understand. The attitude determines the knowledge that is given, meaning the receptivity, because an attitude shows that receptivity, that ability to absorb knowledge. Generally, teachers sometimes are willing to give higher knowledge or talk at a higher level when they realize that student is ready and willing. So this is also a key factor in certain traditions. They say that in some traditions they say that when the when the teacher is when the student has come, the first thing is the teacher tries to assess at what level the teacher is ready to get knowledge, and accordingly they will talk. Because if you start talking to somebody, like other day we were discussing in Upanishad, the ability to see the movement of mind and then to see that there is consciousness in all moments of mind. See, this is like somebody who is ready for that knowledge. So sometimes people want to discuss things like this at an intellectual level. Then the many traditional teachers will not go there, because that person in his attitude and in his absorption is not ready to take that kind of knowledge. So when it is said here, Upadekshanti te jnanam, meaning they will give you that knowledge, give you that wisdom. It is not just like how you get everything. Like if you join a college, you sign up for a course, everybody gets the same thing, or at least it is given like that, right? And everybody absorbs it in their willingness to, according to their capacity. So there is a difference. But even sometimes the teacher is willing to discuss or even give that some subtler higher pointers when that student has a right attitude. So that is why here that person who does bowing and offers seva, as as I was mentioning just now, that seva is superior to giving the gift of wealth. Why? Because that seva, it means that you are making effort through your body, mind, and speech. In a way, you are offering that body, mind, and speech there. So that gives that attunement for that teacher or the teaching to flow to that student. And now he goes on to say one more point. Jnanina upadekshanti te jnanam. Jnanyas tattvadarshibihi. That word tattvadarshibi is coming here. What does that mean? So tattvadarshi literally means the one who has realized, who has a vision of the reality, who has seen that reality, the ultimate reality. So jnanam, jnaninas tattvadarshivi. So they who are stabilized and they who have the vision of truth, that reality. So here Shankaracharya mentions that what it is referring to is that there are many people who claim to be teachers, right? When in our things we say there are many darshans, and there are other like uh, lesser kind of teachers, right? Like some who teach us how to, as I was just saying, chant mantras, some who will teach us to do some asana, yoga, and all that. So, why is a teacher who gives knowledge considered the most supreme? Is because that teacher is not an individual as such. That is your own Guru Tattva, your own Guru in that form. So we may go through different processes of Guru and all that, who we take sometimes as the one who awaken us in this life. So this is a good point. This is good to revere such gurus. But once we start absorbing knowledge, what happens? Meaning that when we are able to grasp that knowledge and absorb that knowledge, that person becomes the medium through which all your former gurus and former things, not just the person, that tradition, that means of knowledge, they become the means through which your jnana nishtha starts happening, meaning the abiding in knowledge, the abiding in wisdom starts happening. So this is why we need an individual or an individual tradition, a person in form, in a somebody whom we can go through. So that person himself is not like God. That individual himself is not like some superior being or like entity. But through him it is flowing to us. Through her it is coming to us, that wisdom. So this is why, that they say that Acharyavan Purusho Vedaha, it is said in the uh, mantras, meaning the one who has an Acharya, one who has a teacher, he is the one who can know who can know the reality, who can know the truth. So, uh, so this is, we see in the life of many people this kind of thing. There is some means or some form or some attribute of a teacher that comes in their life, and so this person then becomes this teacher is not just giving us the information. huh, he becomes the means of transformation. See, information today, as we all know, if we really want information, you can go a lot of that AIs are there nowadays, right? Chat GPT and all that. So they will give you a lot of information. They are able to, we have so many means, and they are actually sometimes more precise because they have more stock of memory. So they are able to give that kind of thing. But of course, that stock also many times, like when we were doing our project, we checking with people, it gives us wrong information, and then you point out it is wrong, and it will say, yeah, you are correct, this is wrong. And then, so so the stock is based on what has been supplied to it, right? So it is as good as the information that is put into that. So that is the fundamental difference. AI is that it's processing that knowledge, and that knowledge is there. It's not necessary that knowledge will transmit to you. That information may transmit to you, meaning that information you might get. But that knowledge to transmit, it requires a person who has an intellect and the Chaitanya Rupa. That because that it is what we say, right? That knowledge is that Chaitanya and that vritti. That vritti that comes from Chaitanya, that leads to, there is all this processes called vritti vyapti, phala vyapti. Vritti vyapti is that information coming. Then phala vyapti, that the information fructifying in us. That comes through a conscious medium. So that is why this mantra, as I had mentioned before, many people quote this mantra from Gita. That ability to the person who has to give, and he has to be a tattvadarshi, not just somebody like I had mentioned this before also, not just somebody who has studied everything. He has to have also made that spiritual progress, that he has to be attuned to that tradition, that lineage, and all. It's ideal. That person is able to point out. Otherwise, we might get some enthusiasm through somebody. Somebody might say, there are these things they say, what is not true knowledge. If you're just getting intellectually stimulated, doesn't mean you are getting transmission of knowledge. Or if you're getting emotionally moved by some, like, sometimes people who in India, especially those who teach Puranas, a lot of stories. So they're able to present that stories in a way that people get moved. So how many people you are able to bring to tears, that amount of success that teacher is supposed to have. So that is not necessarily transmission of knowledge. It can be inspirational. They are good. I'm not saying they're not good, but that is not transmission of knowledge. So just emotional arousing of somebody's feeling through teachings and intellectual excitement of through that teaching. Those are not the hallmarks of transmission of knowledge. So then what are the hallmarks of transmission of knowledge? Anybody? What could be the signs of knowledge is getting transmitted in us?
Is it sadhana chatushtaya? The
Huh.
student and the teacher relationship.
Yeah, that is a good point. One is that sadhana chatushtaya is developing in the student through the teachings. Anything else? Anybody else? So the other important thing, most important thing is that that knowledge should become available in that person's life. Meaning that knowledge that is getting, it should become applicable in that person's life and in the person's sadhana also. So sadhana chatushtaya is a development of discernment, dispassion, and desire for liberation. So what is it may saying when we are developing in sadhana chatushtaya? That knowledge that is coming is actually transforming my vision of life. How I see life should change. How I am able to interact in life, that also should change. So knowledge is not just transformation at the level of like my body and mind. Like that is also important. But that kind of knowledge is again not a complete thing. That can come through practices also, right? Like transformation in our life. Like if I have some habit of waking up late, and because I start doing yoga, there is some change that will happen. I'll start waking up early or at the time I'm supposed to and do the classes. So there is physical and mental transformation to some degree that is happening. But that is not necessarily the transmission of knowledge through studies of these kind of scriptures. The transmission of knowledge received by an individual through a teacher and tradition leads to the change in the person's vision and perspective of life. So that is why we say darshana. The word for Indian philosophy is darshana, not just another philosophy. Meaning it is darshana means vision ultimately. How you see life, how you experience life, and beyond also the ultimate truth. You have a vision of the ultimate truth. And that is the word it is used here. Tattvamasi, the seers of truth, the seers of ultimate truth. So they are the teachers through whom we should seek that truth. Okay. All right. So now let us look at now he's going to begin this discussion on knowledge, the beauty of knowledge. So this chapter is very profound for that conclusion mantras here. These are the direct mantras where he extols the path of knowledge, jnana yoga or jnana yajna. Of course, in every chapter he will explain some aspect. Some chapters he will focus on the dhyana yoga. Some he will focus on karma yoga. So this one is the Jnana Yoga. He's gonna the benefits and the praise of that. Okay, those of you who can, you may repeat after me. Shloka number 35. Okay. Yajñātvā na punarmoham.
यज्ञानात्मनर्मोहम्
Evam yasyasi pandava.
एवयास्यसि पाण्डव
येन भूतान्यशेषेण
येन
भूतान्यशेषेण
द्रक्ष्यस्यात्मन्यथो मयि
द्रक्ष्यस्यात्मन्यथो मयि
अपि चेदसि पापेभ्यः
पापेभ्यः
सर्वेभ्यः पापकृत्तमः
सर्वेभ्यः पापकृत्तमः
सर्वं ज्ञानल्पवेनैव
ज्ञानप्लवेनैव
Vrijinam santarishyasi
Vrijinam
santarishyasi
santarishyasi
yatheidamsi samidhognir
yathedhamsi samiddognir
Bhasmasat kurute Arjuna
bhasmasat kurute Arjuna
Jnanagnis sarvakarmani
jnanagni sarvakarmani
Bhasmasat kurute Arjuna te tatha
bhasmasat kurute tata
nahi jnanena sadrisham
nahi jnanena sadrisham
pavitramiha vidyate
pavitramiha vidyate
tat swayam yoga samsiddhak
tat svayam yoga samsiddha
kalenatmani vindati
कालेनात्मनि विन्दति
Okay. Yatnyatva na punarmoham. So the one thing about knowledge is that when you get true knowledge, what is the indicator when you get a true knowledge? As I was just saying, your vision of life should change, right? So what will happen then? Then you will not have delusion anymore. When the vision of life, the perspective of life, and the vision of truth is had, then what happens? You will not again fall into the delusion like how you have fallen now. This is talking to Arjuna because he's fallen in that state of confusion and not knowing whether to fight the war or not and all that, right? So similarly, we are all confused in our own ways. We are going through different states of delusions in our lives. So that thing he is promising, meaning he is not just giving it, telling you to take it by faith, but the vision that will change us, the vision that will give us the true guidance in our life. So that becomes the eventually that knowledge it becomes our guru tattva, our guru in life. So this is why many times sometimes people say that I've come from this path and that path, I've had that guru, this guru, and all that. But ultimately, what is the thing? That knowledge, that wisdom is your guru. So individuals, many will come and go in that sense. But of course, as we come to the path of knowledge, we are not looking out too many that kind of teachers. But at the same time, all those things has brought us to the path where the true vision, the true wisdom can be the guiding force in our life. So, yena bhutanyesheshena. So now he gives like a somewhat like a Mahavakya. This is in Gita we have discussed. They're not direct Mahavakyas, but there are many subtle representations of Mahavakyas. Yena bhutanya sheshena. When you see every people, everyone, every being, every living entity, how will you see them? You will see them in your own self. All the beings, all entities are, you will see, as indistinguishable in their form of pure consciousness, and they are same entity like you. That is the vision that we start getting. And not just that, what does it mean when I see in me? Then he says this Tattvamasi or Aham Brahmasmi Vakya, where he says, it is the same as seeing in me. Me means that Lord, that Supreme Lord. So, when we talk about Tattvamasi, thou art that. We talk about that two entities there. That thou, you are that. Or when we are saying, okay, for simplified versions, you are that. When we say that. So, Tvam is you. And then there is Tat. Tat denotes what? Tat denotes that supreme God, or the what we call the Saguna Brahma, the one who we take as the creator, the entity, the one who is the creator, sustainer, and everything. That supreme being, the one we can say nature sometimes, right? The one who controls all the aspects of nature. The nature also needs some kind of a regulating force, right? So everything that entity. So now that entity is also taken as an entity separate from you in ignorance. Now what happens when you're able to see everything, all beings in you, then what happens? You are not separate from that supreme entity. You and that supreme entity are of that same essence. Of course, at the level of body and mind, you will remain separate. You will always have that distinct separateness from others, from God, and from the world also. There is always a separation. But when that realization of that essential beingness comes, what happens? Then that Mahavakya comes and tells us Tattvamasi. Or rather, when the Mahavakya tells us, we wake up to that realization that essence of me or that essence of Lord is that one essence in me. I'm not different from that. I am not separate from that pure essence of God. This is the otherwise what happens? Ishvara is that one who regulates, who gives your results according to your karma. He will give you results, and you will remain a jiva. So that Tvam will always remain Tvam and the Tat will always remain Tat. This is according to some other Vedantic acharyas. This is also that what they say. They say that that we as Jiva can never become God. So this Tattvamasi is not cannot be taken like that. They say. And then there are other Vedantic acharyas who say that we as a jiva are a part of that God, and we will always remain a part. We will never become the whole. So it is like if you take out like if there is a huge basket, and that basket has 100 apples. So as long as there are 100 apples in the thing, we say there's a basket of apples. But there is that one apple, if you take out, what happens? That apple was part of that basket, right? That basket of apples. So it will always be considered as a one among that many apples there. So, but now when we discuss in a different way, when in an ocean, you take out a cup of water from that ocean. That cup of water is what? Is it different from that water in that ocean? No, that same water of the ocean is that there in that cup of ocean, in that cup of in that cup, that water. So the essence of that cup is not different from that essence of the water in that ocean. They are of that same essence. You cannot separate it out and say that this cup is uniquely different. The cup is different as long as there is a cup. As long as the cup is differentiating it, that water seems somewhat different. But that water is not in essence different from that water of that ocean. So this is the point that the Lord is making here. When that knowledge dawns on you, when the Mahavakya dawns, that you are that, you are of that supreme essence, when that teaching has come, then what happens? You don't remain different. You will see everything in you and you will see everything in God. There is no difference. They're on the equal footing at that point. But as a jiva, we can't say that. So this is why, in Sankhya, they realize that people will mistake this. So they say that every Purusha is individual Purusha, they say. Even though the essence of that Purusha is pure, he will remain different in that sense of a different Purusha. So you will be free, but you will never be in that state of oneness. So that is the conclusion from there. And in Vedanta, that next step of truth, that realization, was unfolded. Okay, so this point here, one other way to look at it, he says, Bhutani ashesha drakshyate. You shall see everyone in you. Then what happens when you see everything in you? Then you realize that the Lord also is that one Lord. Like in you and me, all these individuals and are created, So the creation process, when we think about it, how does the creation process come? Is there like one way to discuss is there is nature and then there is consciousness. So that nature is the one who's creating, it's evolving. Prakriti keeps evolving. And then there is consciousness, which is the like the essence through which it evolves. So Prakriti becomes what is called as the Nimitta Karana. It is efficient cause. It is the one who is creating. And then what is the source? The source is coming from consciousness, from Purusha. So that becomes the material. But in Vedanta, it is not like that. That same person, that same reality, he is the Upadana Nimitta Karana. Upadana means the matter. Like when we build a house, there is someone who is builder of the house, right? Like there could be a architect or a construction workers who will build the house. So they are considered the ones who are building the house. What is the matter? The matter is all this bricks, cements, wood, and wall, and all that you're using. So the material is different, and the one who is the efficient cause of it is different. But here it is not that. That God is that matter, and the God is that one who is the efficient creator, also the designer and the matter, the material for that. God himself, or the Lord, or that whatever we call Prakriti, nature, everything, is itself the nature and it itself the creator of that. And that is not like it is getting from somewhere else. So if it's somewhere else, something else is there, then that entity is not the supreme, right? There is something else beyond and outside of that entity, then that entity cannot be the supreme. So that point also we have to remember. Okay, now he comes back to this discussion of knowledge. Apichedasi papebhya sarvebhya papakrittamaha. So if you consider yourself to be the greatest among all sinners, if you were to think of yourself as the most sinful among all sinners, so generally, before coming to even spiritual path, people will not even think, okay, I'm doing sins, because that this is a religious perspective first comes, right? Or we start developing a sense, oh, maybe I'm doing bad. And what happens then? You start realizing if I'm doing bad, I will get the negative results of that. As I say, karma is going to get you. Even many Gnostic darshans like Buddhism, Jainism, and all that. See, Jainism, even though it is a darshan which they don't believe in God, but yet they consider the forces of karma. So they say that why somebody is suffering, because he has done a lot of sins. And so in order to do that, every way they try to refrain from it. Don't kill any animals, any flies, any mosquitoes. So these are the ways through which they follow be free from sins, because sins will keep you suffering, even in this life or next life. So that is a first maturity. We start thinking maybe my actions will bring me some problems in future. But then we get stuck with that, right? That is a karma kanda. Karma kanda will always limit us to that, and we will always remain in that perspective that I will be the one who were sin. I am a sinner. I have done so many sins. How can I find freedom? I have done so many bad things. So there is a story of Milarepa. Milarepa comes to different gurus and he tells them, he had learned black magic in the through a previous teacher, and he used it in a very negative way and killed a lot of people using that. And then somebody told him, you are now going to hell, or you will never be happy in lives to come because you have killed so many people. And so then that remorse strikes him, and he then starts looking for a different teachers. And the different teachers, some of them say, oh, you have such a huge load of sins. I mean, those who could see through, see, you can never become free. But then the teacher who was able to give him that knowledge, that realization, that teacher kind of pointed out that once you realize the essence of truth, the essence of consciousness, you are instantly free from all that has happened. So then sometimes, people don't like this. They say, like, how can such a sinner who has done so many things can get away freely? Because he's done so many sins, he should suffer for that. Like the case of Angulimala. Angulimala had killed so many people and he had made a garland of people's fingers, And then later he starts becoming a good person through the teachings of Buddha and other things. And he, becomes realized. And ultimately they say he became free also. So how can such a bad person get freedom? So that idea there is that person who did bad is this body-mind complex. That consciousness was never bad in the first place. That consciousness was always pure. Even when that person was committing evil, that consciousness was never the doer nor the enjoyer. Na karta na bhokta. So if you are not the doer, if the consciousness is not the doer, then it cannot become the sufferer also. So that is the idea. So this knowledge, when it comes that I was never the doer, I am not the doer, and I'm not the enjoyer or sufferer, even at this point. So that is what it is mentioned here. Sarvam jnanal jnana plaveneva. So jnanal plaveneva, meaning that boat, that raft of knowledge. Vrijinam santarishyasi, all the sins will not touch you because you have woken up to that realization that you are that consciousness. When that happens, what happens? So the body and mind may still have suffering because the Praarabdha Karma of that person will carry and he or she may still experience suffering. But once the person has woken up to that consciousness, then he's free. Just like how in a dream, in dream you slapped somebody and then because that person was some powerful people, 10 people came with that person to start slapping you and you're getting slapped badly and all that. So because you slapped that person and then you're getting slapped back, but then you wake up, then what happens? Nobody is slapping you, nobody can do anything to you, because that was the different state of beingness, and this conscious entity is a different state of being. So this fundamental difference is what is called as waking up in knowledge. So in knowledge, what happens? It is not a slow transformation process. In all other paths, what is happening is there is a transformation process, and of course that is also there. He will say in the future when the purification is happening, says kalenatmani vindati, meaning through time you will come to that realization. He says so, but the time is not for realization. The time is for purification of the mind, so that the knowledge can abide. That knowledge is instantaneous. That once you wake up, you're no longer dreaming. So the waker realizes I was never the dreamer. I am the waker. I just happened to have a bad dream. So that is the jnana marga, the path of knowledge. That is how it is done. Then he gives one more drishtanta, one more example. Yatai dvamsi samuddhognir bhasmasat kurute Arjuna This is a very famous, oft-quoted shloka. Jnanagni sarva karmani bhasmasat kurute tata. Jnana Agni, the fire of knowledge. What does it do? Just like how when you're doing yajna or any fire you are set up, you're putting wood and all the wood is slowly getting burnt or immediately getting burnt by that fire. Similarly, the fire of knowledge. What does fire of knowledge do? It will burn all your karmas, all the karmas gathered in the previous lives. What do we call that karma gathered in all previous lives? Anybody remembers the stock of all the karma?
Sanchita
Karma.
Sanchita. Very good. Yeah. So all the Sanchita karma gets burnt, and after that burning has happened, whatever actions you do from then on. Of course, you will not do a lot of negative actions as such, but still some things may be happening unconsciously. You may, we are constantly always, hurting other animals or flies and all that. So none of those things will accrue to you. None of those things will come to you. Then that person, will he die immediately? No, the Praarabdha Karma will continue. But it will continue in a way that person inwardly has a realization, I am free. The Jivan Mukta Avastha. He becomes a Jivan Mukta. If he were to die immediately, what happens? We would have never had all these teachings. Because the moment all the gurus they become realized and then they die, then who will give the teachings? There's nobody to give teachings, right? So the body and mind of that individual will continue under what is called as Praarabdha Karma. Praarabdha Karma is the stock of karma brought in this life for experience. Can be good, it can be bad, it can mostly a mixture. So even a great Mahatma like Ramakrishna had to suffer from throat cancer, right? So why wasn't he free? No, that is the Praarabdha Karma, that thing. But the consciousness, that person, into the knowledge is firm that I am this pure consciousness. That remains unaffected, and that is the Jivan Mukti Avastha. So so here there are a few points I will mention. So last look I talked about person doing sins. So the aspect of doing this, the wrongdoings and trying to doing prashchitta karma, all that are good in one way, because as long as there is ignorance, a person should keep doing a lot of those things. I mean, of course, that is not the primary goal of one who is on the path of knowledge, but yet, as much as possible, that sense of remorse and all is a good thing as long as the identification is there. Sometimes, like, people say, want the knowledge, all of life is mithya, so I can do whatever I want. And then, ultimately, as I think someone was saying, right, there's no karma at all. Nothing is going to affect. Everything is an illusion. It's a mithya. See, to come to that state of realization, to leave that state of realization, our viveka should be complete. So then we can say that all the karma, all of life is a mithya. So, but in the vyavahara life, that karma is operating. In our transactional life, that karma is operating. If you do some bad to somebody, if you slap somebody, they are likely to slap you back, or some reaction will be there. Every action will have a equal and opposite reaction, right? As the science says. So that in the vyavahara, we cannot bring that ultimate knowledge to that extent. In the vyavahara, the only way we can do is in our mind, in our intellect, we can have that realization that all this karma that is happening, it is just like it is coming and going. It doesn't touch me, that pure being. My body and mind might be suffering because of that, but my nature of consciousness is ever pure. So this is where, once knowledge comes, we have to be careful also in our in how we interact with the world. One of our Mahatmas, gurus, they would, when somebody comes and tells them that thing, and the person is not established in that pure wisdom, that to that person, he will ask basic questions like, how is your health? How is your work going on? How is your family? Because for that person, that is the reality. You cannot tell to that person, all this is a dream, all that is, say if somebody comes to you with a health problems, you say, I'm attending Gita classes, all this is a dream. Why you worried? So we can't tell that, right? So where that person is, according to that, we have to be able to address that person. So, but in our mind, in our own life, in our own kind of things, we have to have this realization that through knowledge, through wisdom, I am free from all this karmic bondage. So all the actions that what Veda talks about, karma kanda and all that, I don't need to give too much importance to that also. Once this knowledge starts happening, I don't need to waste too much time doing all these homas, yajnas, and that what is the way of all these purifications? Generally, we take to rituals, pujas, and all that, right? That also becomes a secondary means. That also becomes a secondary means for one who is awakening to knowledge. So I mentioned in the last class, the once the person is doing shravana, shravana is important. Then what is the main sadhana of that person is constant mananam. Mananam becomes a very important sadhana because that is how the knowledge is slowly and deeply getting interest and dislodging that ignorance and wrong knowledge in that person. So this next sloka, we will look at it where he says that Nehi jnanena sadrisham pavitram iha vidyate. Even in terms of purification, what is the highest purifying thing? That is wisdom, meaning the wisdom, knowledge itself is a means of purification. And sometimes we say to get wisdom, we need chitta shuddhi, we need purification through other sadhanas. But ultimate purification also happens through wisdom only. Okay, so we will leave it at this. Anybody has any question, comments?
Swami,
Flavia.
I have a personal question. For example, I realized that when I'm not satisfied, I started to have many fantasies. I started to project a new life, a new world, a new, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And as I was listening to you about the knowledge, I thought when I try to project this thing, I'm reinforcing the asmita, this life. Why can I not try to go to other path to think about the knowledge and so on? But I don't know how this can come to my mind and how can I, when I start to have fantasies of changing everything, how can I stop it and think about the knowledge? I don't know if it makes sense for you or not.
So I didn't get that fantasies. What do you mean by fantasies?
For example, when you are not satisfied with your life, with how the things are going on, then you start to think about, I will do.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm not going to the knowledge, but I'm reinforcing.
Yeah, I understand. Yes, that is true. So that is where, when the when we are not established in knowledge, what happens? We do have these kind of notions that perhaps, this kind of thing would make me happy, this kind of, that is the way how, see, when we talk about ignorance, what is ignorance doing is not like ignorance means there is blankness. I don't know something like, when we sometimes say, I don't know, for example, some computer program. So there I don't know anything about it. So here ignorance is not like that. Ignorance is projecting to me a false sense of reality. So I start seeking different projects and different things in life because that ignorance is giving me a false pursuit of things. So just this awareness itself is the first point. What you are able to openly look at and recognize, this itself is the first thing, that these kind of projections that the mind is making, that is a sign that I'm not stabilized in wisdom. Because if the wisdom is there, then I'd be very clear that all these kind of unnecessary things that I'm seeking, and in fact, sadhana also is like that, Many times when we come to the spiritual life, we are seeking different sadhanas, And so sometimes many students who come to me also, and I tell them, main thing is I'm teaching classes. And they will say, like, I thought you will teach this special technique, that special, that one, and so after 10 classes they don't get that, then so that is where that continuous sense of thing where some effort will bring me to something. This is the hardwired thing in us, cause and effect, karya karana. If I do this, I will get that. If I do that, then so this is how the relative world works. The world of action and result. They all work based on that, So of course, here again, contemplating, introspecting on this is the first step. Catching that awareness. So sometimes we go far into our projects, into our goals, and we have built half the castle. Then we suddenly realize, oh, what am I doing? So slowly, when knowledge dawns, then sometimes we can catch. Even before we put the first thing, we will realize, oh, I'm going the wrong direction. Well, that's a good point. It's a very good observation, I would say. And also this thing about, this question comes many times, where people are saying, when we come to seeking knowledge or wisdom, many times what happens is people have come through different paths to come to this, through to seeking knowledge. So in the traditional studies, there is no that strict, stringent thing that this one teacher alone is the thing, because we learn from different people. But as we come on the path, many paths, we will talk about this, many paths, they actually are based on shraddha, meaning the faith. We will discuss this in the next shloka, where it will come shraddhavan labhate jnana. So we also, here it is said, if you have faith, you will get knowledge. Many teachers, many paths also say that if you don't have faith with the God or the Guru, then you will not get salvation and all that they are said, right? So we have to understand that the paths, most paths are driven like that, because that is the only way you will do that actions, those karma, in those things. So there, those paths were not based on knowledge, meaning there you had to take it by faith in order to stay in that path. Some strong religions are also like that, right? Like in this, you have to follow that. So there they are, you don't have to use your intellect, you have to go by blind belief, that faith. And you have to be completely loyal, you have to follow that thing. Some traditions you can't even marry outside your religion. See, all this is also very strong, what do you call, like a uh, faith, which helped you to stay in that path. So when you come to the path of knowledge, that interest has already come for you in the path of knowledge, then what happens, that those were helpful, but now you cannot hold on that strongly to that tradition as such, but the essence of the tradition will always be in you. You don't lose that Guru Tattva which was there, which helped you in that tradition. So this is where the aspect of knowledge, wisdom is not conducive for blind faith, but yet the different kind of faith will arise, and that faith is based on inquiry, your own inquiry and realization. then you will look back and say that all these other gurus and other teachings, they were the stepping stone for me. So there will still be reverence and gratitude, but not that kind of a blind grasping to that. Okay, we will look at it in the next class. Say a closing prayer. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Namo Narayanaya.